Halo Reach stands as the prequel to the beloved Halo series and as the last game in the franchise to be produced by Bungie before handing the reins over to 343 Studios and acted as a final love letter to the iconic franchise. In the dying days of the Covenant's brutal and overwhelming assault on Reach, one Spartan stands defiant, ready to lay down his life to ensure that humanity lives to fight another day. The last remnant of Noble Squad, Spartan B-312, callsign Noble 6. During the fall of Reach, Noble Team proved themselves as a consistent thorn inside of the invading Covenant forces. From providing the initial recon reports that would bring the invasion to light, Noble would embark on a number of key operations throughout the fall of Reach to frustrate and combat the invaders through a combination of special operations, critical battle deployments, counter-ops, and assisting with military and civilian evacuations. But what would have happened if an integral and uniquely skilled member of Noble Team had gone missing? Today on The Missing Protagonist, we remove Spartan B-312, aka Noble 6, from the events of Halo Reach and see how things might have played out in his absence. Before we start, it's worth noting we will only be covering the events of Halo Reach in this video, as shown to us specifically in the game, as a lot of Halo Reach lore was retconned upon the release of Bungie's final game. The rest of the Halo series will be covered in a future video, where we will be removing everyone's favourite super soldier, the most iconic Spartan of them all, 117, the Master Chief. So be sure to hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it. Now, just for how we'll remove Noble 6, well, due to his arrival in Noble Team during the game's initial cutscenes, we're simply just going to swap him for another Spartan. Simple. This unnamed Spartan we'll call New Noble just for simplicity of this video. As to the skill sets, each member of Noble appears to have brought something unique. Carter Noble 1, Leadership, George Noble 2, Heavy Weapons, and as mentioned in the Reach Monument, Noble's Fighting Spirit. Noble 3 Jun, the Marksman and Sharpshooter. Emil, Noble 4, the team's CQB expert. Kat, Noble 5, the cyber analytical hacker and genius. That would mean our replacement Spartan would have to bring something unique to the table. And as our Noble 6 was a hyper-lethal vector, only one of two, we're going to have to assume our new Spartan is at least also a competent fighter. I think setting them up as a pilot would make the most sense, as we only ever really see Carter and 6 flying. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. To save us all a lot of time, Acts 1 through 4, Winter Contingency, through to the Tip of the Spear, I believe playing out almost identically to how they would in the original timeline. New Nobles would be an adequate replacement for Noble 6 in all of the reconnaissance and basic duties required of a Spartan that Noble Team had been deployed on up until this point. However, in Act 5, A Long Night of Solace, this is where things begin to get really interesting, and things begin to devolve from the main storyline. Without our original 6, who was a test pilot in the Saber program, I think the mission could have gone very differently. Across the course of the mission, multiple setbacks threatened to derail the mission as a whole, specifically including the destruction of the only real heavy fire support the mission had, the Savannah. Now, I see the entire mission's success seemed to hinge on 6's ability as a Saber pilot, and the mission as a whole was entirely dependent on the success of the Saber teams. Without the additional skills of 6, it's likely the mission wouldn't have been as successful, leading to a much higher loss of life, and with the loss of the Savannah compounded with the loss of the Saber teams, we may have seen the mission aborted should the Corvette not be taken. This would have left George alive, but ultimately would have accelerated the fall of Reach. Not a substantial amount, as I believe the Covenant battle group would still have arrived shortly afterwards, but an additional supercarrier able to launch extra invasions on additional fronts would have been grim news for sure for the defenders of Reach. Now, this does beg the question, would George and New Noble survive the space battle? Making things interesting, I'm going to have them survive in this narrative, retreating back to the planet's surface to rendezvous with the rest of Noble Team. Exodus. As George and New Noble fight their way through the city, in a similar vein to how 6 did in the original timeline, Noble Team would reunite in its entirety. Now, due to the rapidly declining state of the war, it's unlikely Noble Team would have been sent to New Alexandria on counter-up. Instead, they would have been sent straight to Sword Base. unfortunately condemning all those in the city unable to escape before its classing. Upon arriving and punching their way back into the increasingly overrun sword base, Noble Team would still reach Halsey as in the original timeline. The only potential differences here being Cortana's choice and which member of Noble Team escorted Halsey. For the escort, I think it would clearly be George. Let's be honest, I don't think he would allow any other Spartan to go with his mom. And for Cortana's choice, just to fit with the old structure as I like to do, we'll have New Noble take the AI. Now, setting out towards the Pillar of Autumn, here would be another crucial change. In this timeline, I could see New Noble piloting the ship. Meanwhile, Carter, Kat, Emil and Jun would be formulating a plan in the rear hold. As the Pelican begins to take increased fire, and it becomes clear New Noble's injuries are too severe to survive, Noble Team would proceed on foot, as in the main timeline. However, due to the support from the additional supercarrier, including its incumbent fleet of Banshees, the airspace would likely have been even hotter than in the original timeline, leading to the Pelican being taken out an additional distance from the shipbreaking yards and their main target, the Pillar of Autumn. Retrieving Cortana, Noble 1 would take the lead, with Jun and Emil taking point. En route to the shipbreaking yards, I believe Noble Team would take another casualty, my bet being Kat. Eventually, the 3 remaining Spartans of Noble Team would make it to the shipbreaking yards, with Emil taking control of the main gun, with Jun in support from the superior vantage point it offered, covering Carter as he made the drop-off. With Cortana successfully delivered to Captain Keyes, Carter would rush to the aid of his embattled brothers, with the elite team dispatching Emil and mortally wounding Jun. Carter would then man the gun as 6 did in the original timeline, protecting the Pillar of Autumn as it made its escape, and would go down fighting alongside the bodies of his 2 last remaining brothers. Without Noble 6, Reach falls faster, the battles are bloodier, and the casualties higher. And yet, due to the combined strength, ingenuity and spirit of Noble Team, humanity still lives to fight another day, through the Master Chief and through Cortana, safely aboard the Pillar of Autumn and headed to a certain installation. And somewhere out in the galaxy, Spartan B-312 stands ready to help humanity. Hopefully he could drop back in as an antagonist in a later Halo game, eh? But what do you think would have happened? Would Noble Team have shattered faster without Noble 6 there to help them? Have I given the rest of Noble Team too much credit? Let me know in the comments below, guys. Now, what would have happened if the Chief never woke from his stasis aboard the Pillar of Autumn? Now that's a topic for another video in another day. Be sure to subscribe as you won't want to miss it. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, I've spent a long time away from making these videos. I apologise for the time away, guys. It feels good to be back, and I hope you'll all bear with me as I get back into the swing of making these. I'm definitely going to be experimenting with the format across my next few videos. Be sure to give me some feedback, guys. I do this for you at the end of the day. Be sure to like and subscribe, as it helps the channel more than I can ever say whenever you do. And I look forward to catching you on the next one.